All right, guys. Today we're gonna go over a really cool topic. So we're gonna discuss what is the difference between a database and a schema, and we're gonna use Walmart as an example. All right, guys. Let's go ahead head over to the laptop and let's get into it. All right, as y'all can see, I have Excalidraw up, and we're gonna get right into it. So as I was saying, we're gonna use an example of Walmart and explain the differences between a database and a schema. In some databases, like they may be the same thing, but a lot of times people think of them as two different components, so to speak. So let's just use Walmart as an example. So what I'm going to do is first off, I'm going to draw some boxes here, and I'm going to break down just some of the different things that like Walmart sells, right? And I'll explain to you why in a second. I'm just going to start typing stuff. All right. So if you ever been to Walmart, Walmart sells stuff like clothes. They may sell like food. They may sell things like auto stuff. They may sell like technology, so like like appliances and things like that. So let's just say tech. They may have like a pharmacy, stuff like that, right? Okay, so that's Walmart. Okay, so the way you want to think about this is a database is nothing more than a file cabinet. Now, some of you may have worked in places where the file cabinet, well, most of us, right? File cabinets were just a mess. They were not really organized, right? So when you think about Walmart as a business, they sell these different things, some other things. But I'm just starting with this piece right here, right? They sell these different items, right? And if you think about it, what are the different items here? Like, how are these items different, right? And that may be based off of like how you can think about them, right? So for example, when you have food, you have like a quantity, you may have a size about it, you may have information about where it came from, right? So it would have came from a supplier, things like that, right? Now something in pharmacy is similar but has some differences, right? So when I think about pharmacy, again, it probably have like a supplier, like who supplied the drugs, the quantity, like where it came from, and things like that, right? But also there's like HIPAA things, right? So that are in pharmacy specific. So like if you go and pick your drugs up, they can't talk about who it came from. Where like there isn't all these HIPAA violations within clothing and food, right? So you start to like layer these together before you start to build out your database and your schema structure. Those are the kind of things you want to think about, right? So I would say logically, right? If I was Walmart and I was starting something from scratch, like a brand new database structure, I could probably put food and clothes together in the same database, and I could probably put auto in the same database, and I can probably put technology in the same database. What I might want to separate out is pharmacy due to the HIPAA and it just being more of a medical kind of a separate type of being a separate type of industry out, right? And you could also make the argument for auto, right? Because if you think about it, the rest of these items here are more they're real goods. Like you buy something and you kind of walk off with it. Like you get like it's tangible. It's tangible good, right? So like these are tangible goods like clothing and food, but then you have the auto piece, which is not all tangible, right? So for example, when you go to the auto and you go pick up like the let's say you go pick up tires, that's tangible. But like the service component is not tangible, right? So maybe you split out auto into tangible goods and then service goods, right? So when you go inside the store and you go and like pay for your goods at Walmart for like auto stuff, you may be physically, using the same terminal, but the way the transaction is being processed to the service side is a completely separate database, right? As opposed to the goods. So let's say this, right? So I'm gonna say that we're gonna say auto has service and then tangible, right? These are tangible, yeah, make sure I spell it right. So tangible goods, right? Clothes are always gonna be tangible. And food is always gonna be tangible. Tech is tangible. Now, some places, I don't think this is a thing anymore. They used to have those places you could bring your computer, like at what's it called? Like at Best Buy, you could come in and bring your stuff in, and they could like bring your computers and they could work on them, so to speak. That would be something that you might have actually back in the day. And I'm spelling it wrong. Yeah, there we go. And so, like, you'd bring your computer, your laptop in, and they could work on it for you. That's a service good. It probably went through a completely different system. And then pharmacy has like HIPAA and stuff like that. So you probably want to keep that separated, right? So again, like I said, database is nothing more than a filing cabinet. Okay, right? Now your schema is really those compartments you file it in, right? So let's start. So let's say we have one database, right? And we're just gonna call this, or let's start off with like the goods, right? So we have like our database that is tangible goods. So DB tangible or tangible goods, right? Okay. So in that tangible goods database, and you can just think of the database as just like a single filing cabinet, right? Now in that filing cabinet, we're gonna have different schemas. So we may have like a clothing schema, okay? We might have like foods, okay? And then we might have the auto like of tangible goods, right? And then we might have the technology, okay? Right? And so when you think about this, so this is the database, right? And these are all the schema for clothing. We'll have a schema for foods. We'll have a schema for the tangible goods and auto. And we'll have a schema for technology, right? Okay. So that's our one database. It's like our tangible goods that are like non-HIPAA. Now, what we might do as well is here we have another database just for pharmacy. And we might put other things that are like HIPAA violated, HIPAA type things, some other things. I can't think of them right now. But we're just gonna call those separate, right? So we're gonna call them like DB for like HIPAA items, right? Something that we just need to, I think it's like that, HIPAA items, okay? Or HIPAA goods. All right, so we're gonna have a schema just for pharmacy, right? Okay, all right. Okay, cool. So now this sets up a really good foundation, right? Because now we've taken the items that we sell in Walmart. We have two separate databases, right? We have a database for tangible goods, and then we have a database for HIPAA goods, right? So separating them out based off of like information that we don't, just people's personal information as well as them being significantly different. They have different type of they serve different purposes, right? But these top ones here for these tangible goods that are non-HIPAA, like clothing, food, auto, and tech, are very, very similar. And what you'll see in the next video is I'll start to break these things down by tables, and you'll see how each of these schemas are very, very similar with small differences. And when you're building out the databases and with a lot of modern technology today, you can tweak a few things and build these very, very quickly, right? So you may be thinking that auto goods like tires, oil, brakes are completely different than food, right? But at the core of it, how it got from Walmart, from the said factory or the farmer to Walmart, how they display it with a SKU, it's very, very similar. There's not really much of a difference. I just put these in different schemas so they're more for the human eye, right? Like if you're a database developer, someone like this putting it in this type of like logical like structure is very, very nice, right? It's just really simple to kind of understand. that anything food would be in there, right? But food, for example, is a very, very broad definition because we have like, you could have like the deli service in there. You could have in there like cold foods. You could have whole hot foods. You could also have things like alcohol, right? And they have their own different restrictions, right? But we're building out one large schema around that object that's very, very similar. And then we'll make tweaks for each of these other sections, all right? And then again, for pharmacy, because of HIPAA and it just being generally different and how it processes, because again, you think about how like a pharmacy works, it's much more complicated, right? Like if you're at the doctor and they prescribe you a drug, you go pick it up. That there it has a completely different network setup than something like foods, right? You don't need to get this approval. You don't need to sign off all this information, right? So there's a different type of structure there where you have like a document storage and sign off as approvals that really doesn't need to be over here in this situation, right? So that's why we have different databases and different schemas for that. All right, guys, like I said, so next video, we're going to break down, I'm going to go over these tangible goods and break them down by tables so you can see logically how they may not look similar, but they're actually really similar. And we'll start building the table structures and actually putting in some data into a database so you can see how the structure will look, right? All right, guys. If you have any questions or comments or anything, please comment down below, and I'll talk to you guys next time.